Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have a lot to cover this morning. In the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with our good friend, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. And then don't forget tomorrow, Michael Volino, Steuben County legislator, as well as Thurston Town Supervisor will be our guest. And then next week, Monday, we're going to hear about the Chemung County Fair, which kicks off next week as well. And then on Tuesday, former Congressman, current Assemblyman, and current chair of the Steuben County GOP, Joe Sempolinski. All right, let's get right to it. Viewer comments. I missed a few of these during our conversation with the sheriff because we had so many questions to ask him, but also so many great questions and comments coming in. So, Ken, I apologize. I missed your statement, which is, it seems clear to me that protecting illegal immigrants has nothing to do with humanitarian considerations. The Democrats are just trying to achieve a more reliable base of supporters that will help them solidify one-party rule. Open borders that conservatives oppose brings in people loyal to the Democrats. Keeping them here keeps them loyal to the Democrats. The 2030 census will count the illegals and alter the Electoral College and the number or representatives from each state in the House. Many of them will have children while here, and those children will become anchor babies and future Democrat voters. Eventually, the Democrats know that the vast majority of the illegals will be voters. The Democrats believe that the cost to keeping illegals here is a small price to pay for the power that it will result for the Democrats. Thank you, Ken. Comment from a different viewer. Thank you so much for having the sheriff on. Well, of course, we love having Sheriff Jim Allard. If you missed that interview, it's on our YouTube page as well as WYDCTV.com. So make sure you check that out because we covered a lot. Comment from Steve this morning who says, good morning. Oh, wow, I've got a moth in here. All right. That'll be great on camera. Good morning, Steve. I swear I could originally remember it being said that even with the sweeping pardons that Biden gave the people, if they were called in front of Congress, they had to answer all questions or else they would lose the pardon that they were given. Yes, Steve, you're right. That is something that you said, and also many people said yesterday during the Fauci hearing. We're going to talk a lot about that. Did you happen to catch it? If you did, just like I caught that moth, if you happened to watch it was still somehow a really good hearing. Josh Hawley, Rand Paul, others did a great job. But Fauci, I believe the final tally was pleaded the fifth 111 times. He tried to make himself the victim, when really the American people were the victim of his ego. But he tried to be the victim and suggested Rand Paul, it was kind of a witch hunt. We're going to talk about that. First, let's give our Iran updates. Trump yesterday said on Fox News, I'm not sure, I hope they were able to bleep it out, but I don't think they did. When asked about the surprise attack that Iran had on U.S. troops in Jordan, President Trump raged, saying, we are going to beat the blanking blank out of them. I want to get away from that because I don't want to accidentally quote him perfectly, but it looks like he followed through. The U.S. military said yesterday it had completed a heavy wave of strikes against Iran, conducted in response to an earlier Iranian missile attack on a U.S. base in Jordan. The latest barrage came after the U.S. partnered with Saudi Arabia to strike Iran-backed militias in neighboring Iraq, killing at least 20 fighters and 6 Iranian advisors. Wow. Central Command said that in a social media post, so over the span of 2 hours, the U.S. struck dozens of targets belonging to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, including military command centers, as well as missile and drone facilities, coastal surveillance and defense sites. The new strikes came hours after President Trump vowed to hit Iran, quote, very hard after it targeted a base in Jordan. Iranian state media said 2 people were injured in attacks on the island of Qashm in the Strait of Hormuz, and that the explosions were also reported in provinces in the northwest. Elsewhere, drone strikes ignited fires on 2 natural gas vessels at the Egyptian port of Damietta, according to British maritime security firm Ambry. It was not immediately clear who was responsible for the strikes on a U.S.-owned floating storage facility and a Greek-owned tanker. No injuries were reported. Now, we learn that Trump and Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu discussed and focused on, quote, 3 or let me try that again, on big three options for ending the war with Iran, coming with new ideas such as cutting off Iran's trade by ground in a clinical conversation. This is according to senior Israeli officials. One Israeli official said there are usually a lot more jokes. The president is usually a lot more jovial. This was a very, very serious conversation. Cerebral. The leaders focused on 3 lines of focus to end Iran's nuclear program and push them to open the Strait of Hormuz, getting a good deal, tightening the economic noose around Tehran, and expanding the military campaign. Netanyahu, quote, did not tell the president which to choose, and no decisions were made on which path Trump would take, according to a separate senior Israeli official. The value of what we did is I think we added some new ideas, the person said. On the diplomatic track, Israel believes there's one person in the Iranian regime that is more amenable to a fair negotiation with the U.S. Tehran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, whom the official called a realist despite his Islamist ideology, saying, quote, I'm not sure that the difference is the ideologues of the moderates. It's more the realists who understand that over time, his regime will suffer from the continuation of the sanctions. The senior official said Americans have a lack of understanding of the fanaticism in the Middle East, and getting a favorable deal remains elusive as the radical Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps continues strikes on U.S. forces. Quote, if the diplomacy is coupled with very, very strong means, very strong pressure, which I'm not sure that I'm going to itemize here, yeah, I think it could happen, the senior official said. Now, John Fetterman, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later on, Senator John Fetterman said that while he isn't going to criticize the Iran nuclear deal, we are 100% better off now than we were under that deal. Saying, quote, what guaranteed that they were going to have a nuclear bomb is if they didn't bomb Iran last year in June, Midnight Hammer. They definitely would have been on course to build a nuclear bomb. That's a fact. I'm not going to criticize the Obama deal. That clearly wasn't going to work. American presidents have been trying to deal with this for 47 years, and they've been unsuccessful. So, host of News Nation's Cuomo, yes, Chris Cuomo, said, you think that we're in a better situation now than we were under the JCPOA? I always find that interesting, that kind of, and it's not just Cuomo, so many people in the media do it, that lecturing. Do you really think? Almost hoping that they'll change and kind of go to the left talking points. Fetterman said, oh, absolutely, 100%. We've wasted most of their military, we've killed their leadership, and we blew up a lot of their nuclear facilities. They're in a much better space, for sure. Absolutely. Now, I bring this up, and we're going to move on from this because there's so much breaking news and so many things to update you from the basically this week's show and this week's worth of shows and last week's. But the New York Post editorial board has kind of a statement on this, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. And don't worry, we're going to be talking about Fauci. But what the Post editorial board says is that President Trump's enemies want Americans to think he has no idea what he's doing in the Iran war. And his own words can make it easy for them to sell that claim. Like when he says he's pausing strikes because the Iranians really seem to want to talk. Yet Iran's military never stops striking its neighbors or allies and our bases, killing our troops. It makes perfect sense that he vows serious hurt after Tehran shot missiles at U.S. forces. But then he says in the same breath that negotiations will continue. Sometimes his own people put out a confusing line, like last week's leaks about how U.S. stocks of interceptors were running low, and that's why we paused bombing late Friday. And they've got to do a better job with the leaks. Taking out Iran's missile and drone launch sites more robustly is the best way to reduce our use of THAAD and Patriot interceptors. You don't have to stop missiles the enemies can't launch. After multiple rounds of pause and resume, it's unmistakable that Iran reads any U.S. restraint as weakness. And that has been an argument from the beginning. Anytime we pause, anytime we take a break and say we're negotiating, that's when Iran feels more powerful. That's when they build up their weaponry. Whereas Tehran needs to worry when Saudi Arabia joined U.S. strikes on Iran's pet Iraqi militias. Every sign that Iran's attacks are bolstering the alliance against it sends the best possible signal. And yay on Ukraine for hitting a Russian vessel ferrying to and from Iran via the Caspian Sea. On the other hand, Reuters report that China is sending Iran shoulder-launched missile systems means the Islamic Republic's flagging air defenses will soon improve. If Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi really is a regime chief's realist, maybe we should help him by wiping out the Revolutionary Guard leaders who seem determined to just keep waging war on the global economy in hopes of forcing Team Trump to give up. The Iranian strategy, which now has the Houthis joining in the economic warfare, sure seems to assume that concern for the U.S. economy is what explains Trump's pauses. If that really is the issue, the president should say so clearly, because otherwise he's confusing the American public more than he is the enemy. Your thoughts on that? Just a kind of a different take than perhaps what we've been hearing. Now, as I said, we're going to talk about, what would you call him? Egomaniac after reading his diary, Dr. Fauci. I guess it doesn't come as a surprise that he pleaded the fifth. His little speech before, and we're going to do the kind of the big takeaways from it, but his big speech before the hearing about this is Rand Paul just attacking him and woe is me, I'm the victim, I think came off quite pathetic. I know the news media is saddened over this. Remember, the news media in Hollywood fawned over Fauci. He was a rock star. They made bobbleheads. They had fan clubs, essentially. So we will be talking about that, but most importantly, I want to hear your opinion on it. We do have, 3-4 quick updates from the show from earlier this week and last week before we get to Fauci, though. So let's keep moving along. We'll take our first break. We have so much going on. I got to keep it all straight, make sure we're on time. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We do have some lingering shower and isolated thunderstorm potential for our Thursday, and on the cooler side still as well, with highs ranging from 72 to 78 across the region. Overnight, we'll bottom out in mid-50s and low 60s with partly cloudy skies. Then, mostly sunny on Friday, a high of 83 on track with daily average. We'll have a high of 86 and stay dry Saturday. Rain returns Sunday.
Hi, this is the owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amara Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Yeah, hello. I'm really not sure if this is what you all do, but I really don't have anywhere else to turn.
Hi. I don't even know why I'm calling right now. I'm sorry. My thoughts are going a mile a minute.
My kids are out of state. My buddies from the Army are all gone now. I'm really alone.
I left the service last year. My mom just passed away a few months ago. I miss so much time with her. I keep getting calls about the bills, and I'm trying to get a job, but I feel so stuck.
Okay, ma'am. I'm glad you called.
Okay, sir. Let's stay on the line and walk through some things.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. All Democrats say Trump says Trump to the fifth. He didn't have a blanket pardon. And one New York appellate court returned all Trump's money with interest. He still has business in New York. Trump Tower is still in Manhattan. What did Democrats get for the taxpayer money they wasted? Trump is president. You're right. Well, that was their whole goal, was to what they thought was ensure that Trump wouldn't be president. Letitia James, Alvin Briggs, that was their goal. And I think that backfired. We heard from numerous people that said that was one of their main reasons for deciding, if they're on the fence to go with Trump, that they didn't like the lawfare. They didn't like these powers that be essentially telling you who you can and cannot vote for. So you raised a very good point. All right. Yesterday, the Senate Judiciary Committee called off a scheduled vote on Todd Blanche's nomination for Attorney General less than 24 hours before it was to be held. After, you guessed it, 2 Republicans threatened to tank the acting Attorney General's confirmation bid. I'll tell you, and a lot of times these are the ones that are retiring, so they don't even have like a dog in the fight anymore. And that's what makes it even more frustrating. They don't care about the party. They don't care about the agenda, the Make America Great Again agenda, America First agenda that they ran on originally. That was all pomp and circumstances. That was all them wanting to put on a good show. And now you have a scenario where they're just trying to be a fly in the ointment. It's pathetic, but it's going to hurt Republicans in November when so many Republicans have this apathy. They don't care anymore because they say, wait, we gave Republicans everything. We gave them the House, the Senate, the White House, and they still can't accomplish the president's agenda. Well, at issue is a settlement reached between the IRS and President Trump earlier this year, which would establish a since-scrapped $1.7 billion fund for victims of government weaponization and also granted the president immunity from tax audits. Senator, you guessed it, John Cornyn and Tom Tillis, both of whom are leaving office at the start of next year, are demanding written assurances from Blanche addressing concerns that they have about the settlement before they vote to confirm Trump's pick for the top post at the Justice Department. Quote, Chairman Chuck Grassley works to set President Trump's nominees up for success in the committee, not failure. Senators Cornyn and Tillis want written assurances from the Department of Justice regarding the Trump IRS settlement, a spokesperson for the Senate Judiciary Committee said in a statement. Cornyn is coming off particularly pathetic in all this. It's frustrating when you have people that want Trump's support. It's kind of like the Mitt Romney scenario, right? Want Trump's support, then hate Trump when things don't go their way. That's exactly what Mitt Romney did, begged for his endorsement when Romney was running for president. Then when Trump gets the nomination, he gives that big campaign, or that, I guess you could call it that campaign speech to essentially tell people to vote for Hillary. And then when Trump wins, he begs, you remember that infamous picture, begs to be, what was the Secretary of State, I believe. And there was a back and forth. Mitt Romney came off looking very pathetic, clearly. Same here with Cornyn. You lost. You lost because you didn't back Trump and his agenda. And now he's just trying to be that pain that gets the attention. Now, the spokesperson continued tomorrow's markup, meaning today. Oh, no, I guess, yeah. It is postponed as work continues to secure sufficient support in committee to favorably report Attorney General nominee Todd Blanche, who is highly qualified for the job. Cornyn, who lost his Senate primary race to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton in May, and Tillis, who opted not to seek re-election, both sit on the Judiciary panel where just one GOP no vote would effectively derail Blanche's chances of being confirmed by the full chamber. The delay will make it tricky for Republicans to confirm Blanche before the start of the Senate's August recess next week. Cornyn told reporters earlier yesterday that he asked the DOJ for specific changes to the Trump IRS settlement agreement. Quote, we actually sent them a red line strikeout of what we need, and they just need to make a decision. Noting that he was trying to make it easy for them. So he wants that power. He's still got the ego, right? He's still on the way out the door, wants to be a kingmaker. Anyway, so frustrating. And this is what we're dealing with as Republicans, and this is why people are so frustrated. Tillis is in lockstep with his outgoing Senate colleague, meaning Cornyn, but made clear that he doesn't have a beef with DOJ or with Blanche. Okay, just want to make a name for yourself on your way out the door. Interesting. Okay. A couple quick, and just your thoughts on that and the frustration that Republicans feel towards their own party. And again, it's just a few, it's the Cornyns, it's the Thomas Masseys of the world. that just want to be that I'm taking my ball and going home spoiled kind of child mentality. From yesterday or the last few days, I just thought this was worth noting. Actress Patricia Heaton, you remember her from Everybody Loves Raymond? She was in New York City during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. She joined families of the victims in calling for Mayor Mamdani to be banned from the 25th anniversary of Ground Zero. Mamdani has been very, and this is just an update quickly, there's no way to segue, but if you recall, Mamdani was very smug in saying, I'm going to stand with those people, the victims and the first responders. Even though this petition has grown to 45,000 signatures demanding him not attend the 25th commemoration. Make no mistake, in my opinion, he will undoubtedly be at that commemoration. Keep it going, New Yorkers. She tweeted out with a link to the petition. Like I said, it's at 45,000 signatures. She sent it out to her 500,000 followers. Heaton's post included a screenshot of a comment left on the petition by a family member who lost their brother in the terror attack, saying, I'm incensed that a terrorist accuser is now mayor, an outspoken sympathizer for terrorist perpetrators. He is disqualified from attending the 9/11 remembrance ceremony and ought to be barred. Patricia Heaton saying, I happened to be in New York City on September 11, 2001 with the cast of Everybody Loves Raymond. It was a terrifying experience. It's hard to believe now that Israel's experiencing the same horrors. It needs to end. That was in reference to the October 7, 2023 attack. Just thought I'd keep that going. The petition up to 45,000 signatures and growing. All right, we got to take another short break. Quick update on the Smithsonian. Quick update on Fetterman, because I said we mentioned Fetterman. And that will lead us into Dr. Fauci's hearing. Your thoughts on it. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen. Kids time. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer. Mamdani will honor the terrorist. He should be nowhere near a 9/11 memorial service. His smug answer was essentially, I hear these victims and I stand with them at the ceremony. It was very... he knew exactly what he was doing. Hey, about the Smithsonian, as Republicans intensify their scrutiny against the Smithsonian Institution, remember, it's not just the institution itself, meaning the building, the museum, but also the essentially propaganda they put out for children throughout the year in classrooms. Numerous former Democratic staffers and employees of progressive nonprofits are holding senior positions throughout the nonprofit Smithsonian, while officials responsible for hiring emphasize diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, or DEI. A Fox News digital review of public biographies and social media profiles identified roughly 24 individuals employed by the Smithsonian in leadership positions or as curators who worked for Democratic offices or progressive nonprofits before being hired. Leadership biographies and political donation records indicate the pattern extends beyond a handful of senior employees. That former Democratic staffers and the individuals previously employed by liberal nonprofits now hold leadership positions at the Smithsonian. It's likely to further fuel conservative criticism. And this has been for a long time. This criticism is not new. The Smithsonian in their bias has been known for a long time, but it's almost something that's been ignored or overlooked. It's almost like they're in their own bubble, is how you could put it. And we're not going to go through all this, but just looking at because it's a great piece. It's at Fox News. What they've looked at, as they've looked at the history of the Smithsonian and the far left rhetoric they've been pushing. While a full accounting of the political beliefs of the Smithsonian's senior staff and curators is impossible to glean from the public records alone, political donations can provide some insight. Listen to this. Only about 1% of donations made by individuals identifying themselves as Smithsonian employees have gone to Republican committees this cycle. About 1%, folks. So this ties in very similar to what we're talking about at universities. And I know there's been a push to, what's the word I want to use? For diversity. Let's use their term diversity, but in this case, diversity of opinion, because at universities we have such a far, far left faculty, staff, administration. And so and the Smithsonian obviously providing paperwork, classroom work for younger children. So I thought I'd mention this. This was something I read about yesterday, just to pass along this information to you. Nearly 52 million students nationwide in public, private, or charter schools could be eligible for federal Freedom Scholarships, including more than 2.7 million students in New York State. The students in each state who would qualify for the funding under the Education Freedom Tax Credit. 31 states covering 31 million students have opted into the program, including New York, which is kind of shocking, despite opposition from teachers' unions, which claim the tax credit is a privatization or voucher scheme that will spur an exodus from public schools. Most Democratic states have yet to opt into the program, including California, where nearly 6 million students would benefit, said school choice group, the American Federation for Children. Nearly 21 million students are in states that have not signed up for the program that kicks in next year. The scholarships for private school students and Catholic schools, Jewish schools, can be used to defray tuition costs. Public school students can use their scholarship for tutoring, after-school programs, or to cover transportation costs, according to advocates. Under the law, governors from each state have to opt in for students to obtain financial scholarships. It was a top priority of the New York State Catholic Conference and the Teach NY Coalition Orthodox Union, which advocates for Jewish schools. For example, such donations could go to the Inner City Scholarship Fund, which provides financial aid to students who enroll in Catholic schools run by the Archdiocese of New York. Governor Hochul, a Democrat seeking re-election to a second term this fall, opted into the program. Gavin Newsom, considered a candidate for 2028, has not opted in as of yet. Just something interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. Fighting against that indoctrination. Okay. I said I'd give you an update on Schumer. On Fetterman. This ties in with Schumer. Listen to this. We know that Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania receives a lot of criticism from Democrats because he has the audacity to actually, be reasonable and use his mind and has come up with his own conclusions and not just spew the talking points. He's been very pro-Israel, so he's gotten a lot of pushback from his own party. Well, Chuck Schumer urged John Fetterman to stay in the Senate Democratic Conference and praised him as a very good member of Congress, despite growing tensions between him, meaning Fetterman, and the progressive Democrat base. Asked if he wants Fetterman to remain a Democrat, Schumer responded yes, and he's a very good member of Congress. People in our caucus very much like him and respect him, and we're a big tent party. We can have a lot of different views in that party. Now, this came after last week. I think I reported that John Thune suggested that Fetterman come to the Republican side, he'd even roll out the red carpet. Yes, we would welcome him, Thune said, noting that he's had conversations with the maverick Democrat about switching parties, as have other Senate Republicans. I have had conversations with him in the past, as have many of my colleagues, about the challenges he faces in his caucus. And there are many of us who, I think, would welcome the opportunity to have him join the Republican conference, but ultimately that's a decision that's up to him. So there you are. Schumer saying, please stay with us in the Democrat caucus. Now, yesterday, Fetterman, when talking about the hearing with Anthony Fauci, he said he regrets scoffing originally at the lab leak theory. Something that it's not about much more that you regret, but I have one. And that is early on that there was the theory that the virus could have emerged from the lab. And early on, that became like a kind of right-wing theory. And I thought it seemed to make sense. Now, there was a very advanced lab that was close by, and then you have this unknown virus out. But that became a very partisan thing. It seems now it's more and more emerging theory that would have come from the lab. Now, I think that the next time our nation's facing something like this, we not become, as I might have been, blinded by the partisan idea that maybe the truth might come from a side that's different than you are. I think we should be willing to pursue the truth no matter where that may have emerged. So essentially saying he was blinded by partisanship when he questions and called it a right-wing conspiracy, the lab theory. Now seeing that that's the most likely scenario, saying that if something like this happens, God forbid, in the future, that you won't just be, and sadly, we know this, COVID became a partisan issue, that you take politics aside, just because President Trump was president at the time, is now too, but at the time doesn't mean that everything he suggests, everything that his people suggest, that it's denied, ignored, ridiculed. Now, Trump also said yesterday that he inherited Fauci. I've never been a big fan. Trump weighed in on the hearing in which we saw Fauci invoke the Fifth Amendment 111 times. Well, I watched the whole thing today, said the president, but more importantly, I inherited Fauci. He was here from the 80s, so I had him for a period of time. I disagreed with him a lot. I would have had to close down the whole country if I listened to him. I went the Federalist way, which is basically let the governors decide. And generally speaking, the Republican governors did very well. The Democrat governors did not do very well. Trump said that Fauci wasn't a big factor for him, but was for Biden. But Fauci wanted to have nobody wearing masks, if you remember, and then everybody had to wear 5 masks, as many masks as you could get on. I mean, he made a lot of mistakes, and he wasn't a big factor for me. He was a very big factor for Biden. And if you remember, even though we were sort of prime time in terms of that whole disaster of COVID, far fewer people died in the Trump administration than in the Biden administration. We ran it well. Operation Warp Speed was talked about as being one of the greatest success stories anywhere in the world, actually, and we did a good job. But many more people died under Biden than died in the Trump administration from COVID. COVID was a disaster, but Fauci did not help. And he said, well, look, I've never been a big fan of Fauci. Why he did what he did was simple. His lawyer told him to. I don't know if he would have been better off not doing it. There were a lot of questions that I guess he could have answered, and some maybe he didn't feel comfortable in answering, but his lawyer told him to do that, meaning plead the Fifth. So what were your biggest takeaways from the testimony of Dr. Anthony Fauci? We're going to talk about it here in just a little bit after this break. Couple of housekeeping notes. As I mentioned, Hornell Mayor John Buckley is going to be on the program in the 7 o'clock hour. You won't want to miss that. Tomorrow's program, Michael Volino. He is Steuben County legislator and Thurston Town Supervisor. And on Monday, we're going to hear from Mark Watts about the Chemung County Fair, which kicks off next week. And then on Tuesday, Joe Semplinsky, former congressman, current assemblyman. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Whether you're in the market for new, used, or certified pre-owned, Simmons Rockwell locations across the Twin Tiers have more of what you're looking for with our best price right on the windshield. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
One big day of smooth jazz awaits you at the Ferrario Elmira Jazz Festival. Join us at Thorne Street Park Saturday, August 15th for chart-topping jazz keyboardist Brian Simpson and soprano saxophonist Marion Meadows with local favorite Top Shelf. Celebrate with us. Tickets only $42. It's one big day. Buy tickets at ElmiraJazzFestival.com. Brian, Marion, and Top Shelf. One big day.
It's more than music.
Tide isn't just a gentle ebb and flow. It's a mighty force of change. Just like the tide shapes our shorelines, we can shape our planet's future and protect the world's oceans from its biggest threats. Help us turn the tide. Join Oceania's wave of ocean advocates who are making a difference in the world.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We do have some lingering shower and isolated thunderstorm potential for our Thursday, and on the cooler side still as well, with highs ranging from 72 to 78 across the region. Overnight, we'll bottom out in mid-50s and low 60s with partly cloudy skies. Then, mostly sunny on Friday, a high of 83 on track with daily average. We'll have a high of 86 and stay dry Saturday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Thank you so much for joining us. One quick announcement. We got some viewer comments. One quick announcement, because time is wrapping up. If you haven't done this yet, I'm asking you, please give a little, change a lot. This is that digital donations that are going to be matched up to $1,000. Now, this is completely different from the very, very, very generous donor that does the matching donations for our telethon in December. Completely different, but it's another opportunity for the Salvation Army to get some money from a generous donor, because the work doesn't stop for the Salvation Army when Christmas is over. Let me tell you, I see the numbers, and it's amazing the work they do with so little. So if you can, please donate and get that match. So if you donate $5, we'll get another $5. There's $10. It's like you donated 10, and it only goes up to 1,000. So we're just getting to that goal of 1,000. That's all we need to do. I haven't talked with them. I don't know how it's going, but hopefully we got to that 1,000 through generous donors by tomorrow. So please, and if you're not a QR code kind of person, feel free to text me and I will send you the link. But it's such an amazing opportunity for us to get to that $1,000 goal and then have 2,000. So if you don't mind. All right. Jack writes in his thoughts. He says, "Good morning, Frank." Well, good morning, Jack. I caught towards the end of the 100th time Fauci repeated the Fifth Amendment parrot speak. Talk about no kings. During the pandemic, Fauci was basically made dictator. Since Biden granted him complete immunity, he needs to be made an example of. Holding public officials financially accountable through the legal system to send a message that no one is above scrutiny. Overall, I thought Senator Ron Johnson made the program worth watching. Yeah, there's a few big takeaways. Josh Hawley, he did a good job as well. Josh Hawley was the gentleman, and Bernie Moreno, who dismantled Fauci's refusal to answer questions. Let's get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know, as the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more. Brown v. Walker, 1896. When he had been pardoned, he may not stand up upon his privilege. You know that your lawyer is sitting behind you, now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. He surmised that Fauci did not want to answer questions because he did all kinds of terrible things during the pandemic. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question. Fauci refused to answer. Marino chose to ask Fauci about the Fifth Amendment itself, asking him what it even says. This prompted Fauci to briefly speak with a lawyer, only to go on to refuse to answer the very simple question. On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I'm going to give the Constitution to my aide. He'll bring it over to you so you can have it for future reference. I think it's something that every American should know what the Constitution said. Did you know who wrote the Fifth Amendment? Again, they would not answer. But according to Josh Christensen, the 5 most shocking moments from the hearing lasted for about 4 hours. Republicans, led by Chairman Rand Paul, demanded answers on the origins of the pandemic, inconsistencies related to his public remarks on COVID mandates versus his private comments, and his support for funding for risky gain-of-function research abroad that can make viruses more infectious. Democrats used their time on the dais to reflect on the biased nature of the proceedings, with ranking member Gary Peters and others calling out Paul for excluding them from preparation for the hearing and other investigative work by the committee's majority. At its conclusion, Paul announced that his committee would begin contempt of Congress proceedings against Fauci next week and question the validity of the sweeping pardon former President Biden granted Fauci back in January of 2025, to Steve's point, right? Steve had said this before. Paul said, Dr. Fauci isn't liable for anything as long as he tells the truth, even if he admits that he destroyed records on a routine basis, adding that he can't be prosecuted for many of the things that are outside the statute of limitations as well. All he had to do today, if he wanted to testify, was to be honest. As long as he was honest, even about committing a crime, he would have no jeopardy. But I think the pardon that has given him more immunity than most people would ever get. The only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before the committee, this is what Fauci said, is to get me to say something, anything that could vindicate his repeated public pledge that I end up, in his words, behind bars. So the most shocking takeaways. Number one, I think it goes without saying, Fauci took the Fifth Amendment 111 times, including on CIA's funding of his agency. He dodged questions about his since indicted ex-senior advisor, David Morins, who pleaded not guilty in May to concealing and destroying federal records, and whether he engaged in evasive record-keeping patterns by using a personal cell phone and email address to hide information. 2, Paul rejected Fauci's attorney from the hearing room. That was a big one. Paul had U.S. Capitol Police escort Fauci's attorney, David Schertler, out of the hearing room following a tense exchange. It's unclear if Schertler intended to read from a letter he sent to Paul last month, which referenced later in the hearing by Senator Richard Blumenthal, but he repeatedly tried to interject, only to be shouted down by the chairman, Rand Paul. This is the way Anthony Fauci wants to be remembered, for a lawyer not listening to the rules. That's the way you want to be remembered, and that's what you're going to do. Would you? Schertler asked if he could make a short statement, and he said, "You are not recognized. Security, please remove him from the room." Essentially saying, you're not the one before the hearing. It's Dr. Fauci. It should be noted, Schertler, a prominent defense attorney, has previously represented Joe Biden's doctor and ex-Senator Bob Menendez. Remember that name? Now, we had the Republicans unloading on Fauci as number 3 for his pandemic failures, with one even saying, "Who the blank do you think you were?" Several Senate Republicans on the Homeland Security panel used their questioning time to tear into Fauci for his response to the pandemic. Senator Bernie Moreno said there was a mom in Ohio during the depth of the coronavirus pandemic decided to go to our high school football game for her son. They hadn't been out much. They sat alone, far from everybody else, just a mom, a dad, a few kids. They didn't feel they needed to wear masks because it was stupid, because they were outside. They were dragged out of the stadium and arrested. When the story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my business, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am, sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the blank do you think you... I got to be careful. There's so much cussing on today's show. I don't want to slip. Who the blank do you think you were for doing that? Senator Ashley Moody also drew attention to passages from Fauci's newly released diaries. I don't want to go through that. I don't want to fall into that trap of quoting everybody. But number 4 was Fauci enlisted his staff to solicit millions of dollars in what they're calling prize money. And that is what Josh Hawley called out. And finally, Senator Joni Ernst exposed disgusting research on aborted baby body parts. Senator Joni Ernst has revealed that Fauci approved the use of aborted baby body parts in mice research. I don't want to go into the details because it's graphic. But again, Fauci declined to answer. The diaries, we're going to tell you what people are saying about this. There's really a back and forth that Fauci is safe, nothing's going to happen, and then there's there's still an avenue to go down. So we'll talk and give you both of those so that you can decide what you think will happen and what your thoughts in general about the hearing was. But I heard the Corning whistle. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in. Don't forget, Cornell Mayor John Buckley in the 7 o'clock hour. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Get ready for the 185th Chemung County Fair. 5 days of family fun. August 4th through August 8th at the Chemung County Fairgrounds in Horseheads. Experience thrilling rides, exciting games, and captivating livestock shows. Taste delicious fair food and explore local vendors. Rust and Fright Concert August 4th. Tractor Pull August 5th. Rodeo August 6th. Truck Pull August 7th. Demolition Derby August 8th. Join us for the 185th Chemung County Fair, where tradition meets excitement. Visit ChemungCountyFair.com for tickets and details.
Small businesses are the heart of America. Like you, these entrepreneurs started out with a dream and the drive to build a better life. If you have a small business idea to grow or challenge to face, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1964, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses. Today, they are the nation's largest nonprofit source of expert mentoring, resources, and education. Whether you're starting out, building back, or have worked at it for years, SCORE will match you with specialized mentors. Our thousands of volunteers provide the guidance and connections you need for free. Your success is waiting. SCORE is ready to help. Find a mentor today at SCORE.org.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Democrats trying to make this about the vaccine and Trump in the hearing. That is not what the hearing wasn't about the vaccine. It was about the authoritarian way Fauci locked down the country. Flip-flopped on guidance and spent more time defending China. He only wanted fame, money, and celebrity, not to keep Americans safe. Yeah, and we saw that in his diary. Rand Paul said that Congress will vote on holding Fauci in contempt after pleading the fifth 111 times. We believe that with his immunity from criminal liability, that he didn't need to hide behind the Fifth Amendment, and that maybe the Fifth Amendment doesn't attach when you have a pardon in place. Though that'll be a legal question, but the question on contempt will be voted on, and then there's a question of whether or not the Department of Justice will take that up. So that's kind of where we stand. Now, according to Chad Pergam, who works at Fox News, he said, where is it here? The committee could vote to hold Fauci in contempt, but it doesn't stop there. Contempt of Congress must go before the entire Senate. It takes a simple majority to hold someone in contempt, but such a resolution must clear one filibuster requiring 60 yeas. so it's doubtful Fauci is held in contempt. Even if the Senate broke the filibuster, the Senate must approve a separate resolution to make a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. That would face at least one filibuster, again entailing 60 affirmative votes. It is more common for the House to hold someone in contempt compared to the Senate. The Senate last successfully held someone in contempt in 1971. Now, Aaron Blake said, by now in American politics, we become accustomed to high-profile figures pleading the Fifth to avoid answering questions they believe could be used to incriminate them. But when it comes to Dr. Anthony Fauci evoking the Fifth Amendment, as he did repeatedly, it's much more complicated. That's because Fauci was pardoned last year by then-President Joe Biden. We know that. They're ostensibly not trying to prosecute Fauci for what he did during the COVID pandemic, but have talked about holding him in contempt of Congress, a threat to initiate a process that would result in the Justice Department considering whether to charge him. GOP efforts to prosecute Fauci form the basis of his refusal to answer questions, and we heard his whole victimhood mentality. But the key difference between Fauci pleading the Fifth and others doing so is that Fauci was pardoned by Biden. On his way out, you remember he signed that. Well, we don't know if he actually signed it. In other words, Fauci is already immune from prosecution for many of the potentially alleged crimes Paul and the committee's Republicans could try to link him for during the COVID era. But Fauci indicated he was pleading the Fifth because he feared Republicans would try to lay a perjury trap. Indeed, some prominent figures had spoken before the hearing about Fauci possibly still being prosecuted for perjury despite the pardon. But whether it's enough for Fauci to plead the Fifth and be done with it, it is a major unanswered question. There is a tension between Fifth Amendment protections and Congress's investigative authority. And witnesses who claim they are protected from answering questions can be called upon to justify that in court and can be held in contempt. Paul signaled Wednesday that he was scheduling a contempt vote for Fauci. It's worth noting that even if the panel votes to hold him in contempt, an actual referral to the Justice Department requires a majority of the full Senate, as I mentioned. While there's a long way to go before Fauci's potential charges, some legal experts say his claim to the Fifth Amendment here could be dicey. Whether that concern about prosecution is sufficient to support a Fifth Amendment invocation would ultimately be up for a court to decide, said former federal prosecutor Dana Perry. Fauci would point to Paul's repeated accusations and threats as evidence that the prospect of prosecution was concrete rather than speculative, even if he believes any such prosecution would ultimately fail. Mark Osler, a law professor at the University of St. Thomas, wrote that pardon would seem to cover Fauci's previous congressional testimony prior to January 19, 2025. Thus, he can't assert the Fifth Amendment on that fact that he may be asked questions that reveal his prior testimony or as false or at least subject to such a charge. So this does, I know this gets wonky, that it's a little confusing, a little lawyerese. We're going to tell you, I got to get a break again already. We're going to tell you what, I like Jonathan Turley's take on this. He does a great job, especially when it comes to law. Then we're going to hear from just some people and their opinions of what this makes Fauci look like. We're not just going to talk about Dr. Fauci. We've got some New York State issues, some looks at the Democrat Party as the media is trying to ignore kind of the civil war happening in the Democrat Party with the DSA and the establishment, we'll say Democrats, and then the DSA with their own DSA members. But stay with us. We got to take a break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking, getting ready to wrap up hour number one.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
I was diagnosed at 65.
37, earlier than most.
Every 9 minutes, someone is diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
And every one of them can turn to the American Parkinson Disease Association. Visit apdaparkinson.org to learn more and show your support today.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We do have some lingering shower and isolated thunderstorm potential for our Thursday, and on the cooler side still as well, with highs ranging from 72 to 78 across the region. Overnight, we'll bottom out in mid-50s and low 60s with partly cloudy skies. Then mostly sunny on Friday, a high of 83 on track with daily average. We'll have a high of 86 and stay dry Saturday.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Do I have to? The Hesselson studio, excuse me. We're going to tell you what Jonathan Turley had to say about Dr. Fauci pleading the fifth. But someone that I know, I was on radio at the time of COVID, and someone that I quoted a lot because what a strong person, and that's Janice Dean. She used to be a meteorologist at Fox News, but she lost her in-laws to COVID at the time when you couldn't visit the nursing homes, when you couldn't see your loved ones. Well, Janice Dean, who lost both her mother-in-law and father-in-law to COVID-19, accused the former COVID czar of putting fame ahead of the American people, calling him pleading the fifth another slap in the face to grieving families. It was extremely difficult for me to watch the hearings today, to witness a man who, like our former disgraced governor, Andrew Cuomo, used a pandemic to enrich himself, lied to the public, and decide that fame was more important than the lives of millions of Americans. His reliance on the Fifth Amendment was another slap in the face of family members who lost loved ones because of failed leadership and his deadly decisions. I fear that there will never be justice for the thousands of parents and grandparents who died alone. And we talked about this, especially when it comes to former Governor Andrew Cuomo and that disastrous, tragic nursing home decision that he made to put COVID-positive patients in with our most vulnerable in nursing homes. And he has never been held accountable. But Dean, whose in-laws died in New York's assisted living facility, argued that Fauci wanted to be the hero of the COVID-19 pandemic, but instead showed the world what a coward he truly is. And so many who lost loved ones kind of repeating that sentiment, repeating that. Well, for instance, Vince D'Amico, a business developer who lost his parents to COVID, said, "I think it's rather disingenuous that he's pleading the fifth hundreds of times when all you did was see him on TV for days and months on end, where he was effectively the be-all and end-all related to what's going on with COVID." Fauci positioned himself as the central focus of the pandemic response, and while he said he doesn't spend much time wondering about the what-ifs, he found Fauci's refusal to answer questions, this is D'Amico, frustrating. He was the mouthpiece. He was the decision maker. He was the authority, right? Whether or not that authority was misguided by his personal ambitions, it's hard to say. Anyway, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Love to hear your take on it if you happen to catch any of it yesterday. We have some brilliant minds weighing in on it. We're also going to give you some New York updates. Zohran Mamdani and his second house tax, his wealth tax. We also have a few things here about the Democrat Socialists of America. So stay with us. It's hard to believe. Hour number one is already in the books. Coming up in the next hour, right around 7:20, we're going to talk with our good friend, 7:15, 7:20. We're going to talk with our good friend, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. He will be joining us. Again, on tomorrow's broadcast, Michael Volino. He's Steuben County Legislator as well as Thurston Town Supervisor. On Monday, Mark Watts from the Chemung County Fair. We're going to talk about that because next week the Chemung County Fair kicks off. And then on Tuesday, former Congressman and current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. So get your questions in ahead of time if you don't mind. But right now, we got to take that short break and then kick off hour number two. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
Did you know that children growing up with poor air quality have smaller lungs and higher rates of asthma than children that grow up with good air quality? And unfortunately, poor communities have poor air quality. IQ Air Foundation is working to change this. Today, the IQ Air Foundation provides filtration technology to schools with poor air quality through our Clean Air for Kids program. Our goal is to help over 50,000 school children every year breathe over 90% cleaner air indoors, helping to level the playing field, reduce barriers to learning, reduce sick days, and increase test scores. Mitigating poor air quality is key to environmental justice. Help Clean Air for Kids reach more children at IQAirFoundation.org.
Hour number two of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. I ran out to get some tea, so I missed your comments. I mean, they're here. We'll just read them in the next segment. So we were talking about Dr. Fauci's testimony. Jonathan Turley, who does so much, he's a Fox News media contributor, numerous outlets. He's a Shapiro Professor of Public Interest Law at George Washington University. He starts his piece by saying, quote, "Stick with the science and never veer from that, even when the science turns out to be an inconvenient truth for somebody," end quote. Dr. Anthony Fauci, then director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, delivered those words to Georgetown students in 2017 as the touchstone of medical ethics. On Wednesday, before the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Fauci replaced that line by repeatedly saying, quote, "On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution," end quote. The optics could not have been worse, but what you saw depended largely on how you viewed the hearings. For critics, Fauci sounded like Crazy Joe Gallo without the sunglasses. Yes, and you think about it too with the mobster movies where this became such a central theme. For supporters, Fauci is still a hero who refused to fall into a trap laid for him. Democratic senators such as Senator Maggie Hassan actually praised Fauci for refusing to answer questions before Congress. There is no question that it's Fauci's right to invoke his privilege against self-incrimination, and many advised him to do so. The privilege can be invoked for strategic reasons, separate from any criminal culpability. After all, he was given a last-minute pardon by President Joe Biden, and any false statement he made before the committee could be used to bring criminal charges against him. Some of the most embarrassing areas for Fauci concerned his entries acknowledging that he pushed to close schools despite public denials that he ever recommended such closures. However, Fauci is unlike many who have invoked the privilege. Unlike many past witnesses who have invoked it, Fauci has testified for days in countless prior hearings. He also appeared in countless interviews on these issues. He had reason to fear this hearing after his diary revealed startling contradictions between his private observations and his public statements. The question many will ask is why Fauci could not stick with the science and resolve these contradictions. The fact is that he would have had difficulty dealing with his own, quote, inconvenient truths. Fauci's opening statement expressed obvious anger over the release of his unredacted diary. And we don't have to go with, we have been all week, but what's through that in that diary, I mean, and that's what he does. He kind of goes through some of the unvarnished excerpts. The fact is that diaries tend to be self-obsessed, and no one would want their unvarnished private thoughts made public. Rather, my gripe with these passages is one I have previously raised in criticism of Fauci. This again, Jonathan Turley. During this period, dissenting scientists were barred from social media, removed from positions, and vilified for expressing views, despite now being vindicated on subjects ranging from the lab origin of the virus to the efficiency of masks, the 6-foot rule, natural immunity, and school closures. As those courageous scientists were being abused by academic and media figures who still hold their positions, Fauci said not a word in their defense, despite privately acknowledging that they could be right. Yeah, think of how many people lost their jobs, not just scientists, but just in general, for questioning this. That there's no remorse there. Those same media personalities are most likely on your nightly news. And there's a piece, I don't know if we'll get a chance to, because who really cares about Hollywood celebrities, but Kristen Toto had a piece, Hollywood would rather you forget, when it fangirled over Anthony Fauci. But I'll continue with Jonathan Turley had to say, because again, you see him fawning over the media attention he got, meaning Fauci. Yet Fauci remained as silent as his allies in the media savaged those who voiced the view that the virus was made by man and escaped from the lab. Once again, Fauci has every right to invoke his constitutional rights, but the public has every right to demand answers to these questions related to the deaths of approximately 1.2 million to 1.25 million Americans. That may result in a grant of immunity to compel him to answer them. If there is any solace to Fauci, he will clearly be able to maintain that he is, quote, the most famous and talked about person in the country. And that was one of his glowing pieces in his diary. We appreciate Jonathan Turley's take on that. But the mockery that he made that hearing does deserve the Senate's contempt. So the only way he could have incriminated himself, as the New York Post says, because remember, he has that Joe Biden pardon, the only way he could really incriminate himself is morally. All Fauci deigned to offer was an opening statement and talking about his personal diary. Personally, he wrote the entries on a government computer while a government employee. The feds had every right to put the whole thing on the public record, especially since he has long refused to answer many questions, and many of the entries blatantly contradict his past sworn testimony. The nation's longtime infectious disease czar bore major responsibility for closing schools. We know all about that. Does Fauci regret any of it? Especially when he so confidently advised these moves, despite a lack of compelling scientific evidence that such moves made any real sense. Why exactly did he direct U.S. taxpayer funds to Chinese gain-of-function experiments? Why did he lie repeatedly about those funding decisions and use his official power to engineer a phony scientific consensus that the COVID virus developed naturally? Above all, the question every management consultant and sports coach knows to ask after a major defeat: what can we do next time to make sure this doesn't happen again? He took it to the theater of absurd, refusing to answer even when asked the day of the week and the color of his tie. Completely unnecessary because the Fifth Amendment can be evoked selectively. But Fauci wanted to flaunt his disregard for the senators who dared question Dr. Science himself, the man that was worshipped by the media, the man that Hollywood was fawning over. That's the level of position he still wants to be in. That's the same problem that former Governor Andrew Cuomo has. Fauci made a complete mockery of the Fifth Amendment, just as his tyrannical pandemic policies ran roughshod over a host of other constitutional rights. The Senate has a clear duty to hold him in contempt, and with all practical penalties that can entail. But just to show you, the media and their love affair with him is not over. It was Stephanie Ruhle on MS Now. She was discussing the hearing featuring Dr. Fauci. Network reporter Vaughn Hilliard said, "You can't revise that history that everybody lived through." And you know, my grandma, she was in a nursing home at the time. She made it through one round, ended up passing from getting COVID a later time. And there's a reality that more than 1 million people died. You can't revise history for people in that way. And so there's a certain level of arrogance on the part of some of these Republicans. They're asking Dr. Fauci these questions because people in their own families and their own communities had a lived experience. A lived experience that runs counter to what they are trying to hold him seemingly accountable for. So we're not supposed to hold him accountable for his position? Stephanie Ruhle said, "Dr. Gupta, thank you so much. Just seeing your face this morning, Vin, it takes me back. It breaks my heart. I can't believe we're back here. I can't believe we're relitigating this the way that we are. I'm grateful that you're here with us today. I'm thankful you were with us all during those days during COVID. Thank you so much. So I can't believe we're relitigating this. This breaks my heart. That is the media's takeaway from that. But as I mentioned, Hollywood wants you to forget the fangirling over this, says Kristen Toto. Celebrities cheered Dr. Fauci during the lockdowns, assuring us he was the expert we needed in troubled time. And he goes through and says wear the mask, don't wear the mask, stay home, but feel free to protest systemic racism. Remember, that's where I think they all lost the most credibility, these quote-unquote scientists. There was already lacking credibility because of the back and forth. But when we were told we can't leave our house, where we can't have Thanksgiving dinner with our families, where people are getting arrested, for having a party, and then you had people like Gavin Newsom telling you one thing and then going to that fancy restaurant with his friends and having a gathering. Or when they told the American people, you know what, we need to stay home, we need to stay safe, but you can participate in the George Floyd protests and the protests against systemic racism. The COVID takes a break, apparently, for that. Now, between Senator Rand Paul's release of the Fauci diaries and the doctor's humiliating Capitol Hill non-testimony, everyone else should know the truth. Long before he took the fifth, Dr. Fauci had a lot to say on any network at any time. He single-handedly helped shatter our trust in medical science. His lockdown mania also crushed businesses, crashed student test scores, and left millions isolated from their dying loved ones. And I've got to say, in many instances, that learning curve, so to speak, that education, that left a whole group of students, because of the extended lockdown, still struggling to this day. He dined with journalists while he told us to eat alone. The media deserves plenty of blame for not asking tougher questions about Fauci's flip-floppery. So does Celebrity and Hollywood Inc. Saturday Night Live hired what would be deemed the most handsome actor to play him, Brad Pitt. The worst part, Pitt broke character, took off his silver wig, and addressed Fauci directly during Saturday Night Live. Thank you for your calm and your clarity in this unnerving time. He was invited on The Late Show to get his vaccine booster on air, Stephen Colbert, to get his vaccine booster on air, while imploring everybody else to do so. The list goes on and on. Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Julia Roberts, Jennifer Garner. I don't think we have to go through all of this. It took rebel comedians like Tyler Fisher, I'm not sure who that is, to break the taboo and begin to mock Fauci. His Dr. Fauci video, in which he calls for endless boosters, went viral for a reason. What's especially hurtful is what late-night hosts didn't say about Fauci. They too saw his hypocrisy in real time and couldn't find it to be funny. They ignored the signs of his gigantuan ego, something his recent diaries proved without a shadow of a doubt. The Tonight Show interview with Fauci's home had endless photographs of himself in the background. When a doctor declares he represents something as big and powerful as science, that's like a starter's pistol firing for comedians. They didn't hear the loud bang. So enough on this, but the idea that Hollywood wants you to forget, they're fawning over him. Now, Senator Ted Cruz demands that Fauci face jail time and labeled him, and I think this is a very good label, America's most damaging bureaucrat. Years from now, they'll look back and say, what collective madness overtook this country? I think Anthony Fauci has had contempt for Congress and contempt for the American people for decades. His diary shows that he deliberately lied to the American people over and over again. Dr. Fauci ought to think about what it says about the end of his career, that what he will be remembered for the most is pleading the fifth more than 100 times. He's been the most damaging bureaucrat in the history of America. In his diary, he wrote early on that it was clear that the COVID virus did not come from the wet market in Wuhan, and then he turned around and said exactly the opposite on national television. In his diary, he brags about convincing Democrats in New York and California to shut down schools, and yet he goes on TV and says, oh, I wasn't for shutdowns. The school shutdowns, which Fauci bragged that he was responsible for, may well be the single most destructive public policy step we've seen in decades. That learning loss will stick with those kids the rest of their lives when they're 90 years old. They will be suffering the consequences of Anthony Fauci's corrupt and dishonest shutdowns. The fact that he knew he was lying to the American people, he should be held in contempt, he should be prosecuted for perjury, and he should go to jail. All right, on that note, we're running just a little bit late. We're going to be talking, we have one more segment, and then we're going to be talking with our good friend, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Firefighters responding to a fire alarm on a Wednesday found several safety violations.
I'm on scene right now where the commercial fire happened yesterday. As you can see, the building is in complete ruins.
They're pushing for an additional $250 million to the state budget.
Free local pantry here in her front lawn in Painted Post.
The Vencino Group says it will cover hotel stays for residents through March 20th.
With the U.S. Department of State releasing a travel caution worldwide.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Get ready 185th Chemung County Fair. 5 days of family fun. August 4th through August 8th at the Chemung County Fairgrounds in Horseheads. Experience thrilling rides, exciting games, and captivating livestock shows. Taste delicious fair food and explore local vendors. Rust and Fright Concert August 4th. Tractor Pull August 5th. Rodeo August 6th. Truck Pull August 7th. Demolition Derby August 8th. Join us for the 185th Chemung County Fair, where tradition meets excitement. Visit ChemungCountyFair.com for tickets and details.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We do have some lingering shower and isolated thunderstorm potential for our Thursday, and on the cooler side still as well, with highs ranging from 72 to 78 across the region. Overnight, we'll bottom out in mid-50s and low 60s with partly cloudy skies. Then, mostly sunny on Friday, a high of 83 on track with daily average. We'll have a high of 86 and stay dry Saturday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. This hearing is great to get information to the sheep, but the timing benefits Democrats because this got buried in the news cycle. The audio recordings of former President Biden fought in court for years to keep hidden. And we talked about this during the program, nearly 70 hours of recording with him talking with his ghostwriter, where he obviously, it was what Hurd used to say that he would find a sympathetic jury because he sounded like a grandfather type, a forgetful grandfather. A lot of ums, a lot of these type of things. You can find the audio for yourself. They were released, and he did admit in those conversations that may be classified what you're looking at, or this is classified. Yeah, here's the only thing, and I get your point, viewer. I do think it buries that story. I believe that story was buried anyway. That was not something the media talked about it quick enough so they can say they did the job. But they weren't going to do in-depth coverage of it. It didn't fit their narrative. Look how upset the media got and the Democrats got, I know one and the same, when Dr. Jill Biden released her book because they don't want that back in the limelight. So they weren't going to keep belaboring it. It's just, we could have so many instances of this, but it's just an excuse. They didn't need to, they weren't going to cover it anymore. And they're not going to cover Fauci really with the seriousness that it entails. So again, understand your point, but that was all in the cards already, that there wasn't going to be that conversation about Biden's mental health, because that is something, look at it with Jake Tapper's book. They're trying to rewrite history. Comment from a different viewer. Morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. I think after yesterday, everyone knows Fauci is a dirty liar. What we need to know is who paid and directed him to do research in foreign countries that was illegal here in the U.S. Obviously an attempt to cover up what they were doing while wasting millions of tax dollars. This smells of the great Marxist imposter, Barack Hussein Obama. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer, and this was a great blast from the past. This reminds me of the hearings for Lois Lerner. Allowed to start testifying, then plead the fifth. That's a great point. Boy, that's a blast from the past. It took me a second to even remember, but you're exactly right. That was a conversation I can't remember how many conversations. I couldn't tell you how many conversations I had on that back in the radio days. Ken writes in, I'm certainly not a Philadelphia lawyer, but refusing to answer Congress's questions that would have no criminal impact on him seems like it's clearly contempt. By the way, did you see that all the Democrats walked out of the hearing partway through? Just more proof that the Democrats don't care about people. They just care about power and money. I didn't know they did that, but that's become such a grandstanding thing that it doesn't surprise me. But yes, I mean, to your point, and it's been made by others as well, that's what the pardon was all about. So it's clearly contempt. There was no criminal impact whatsoever. But it worked out in his mind for him because he could cry victim and say that Rand Paul was attacking him. But as Miranda Devine says, Fauci's silence on the COVID sins solidified him as a reprehensible villain. He even looks it. And there's more opinion pieces on this. Of course, Anthony Fauci took the fifth, but Stephen Mosier says, I think I know why. Fauci was wrong about everything, from the lab origin of COVID-19 to the China travel ban, from foolish mandatory face masks to punishing lockdowns. His legacy is one misstep after another. His authoritarian edicts made things worse, much worse for Americans than they otherwise would have been. And he, of course, goes through, as we all have, the time frame on this. Whether Fauci inadvertently helped to create COVID or not, once it had emerged from Wuhan, he made a bad situation much, much worse. The truth is, Fauci couldn't have caused any more unnecessary suffering and death in America if he had tried to. No wonder he doesn't want to answer any questions. That's Stephen W. Mosier, the author of Politically Incorrect Guide to Pandemics. Okay, when we come back, we are going to hear from Hornell Mayor John Buckley. One quick announcement before we go to our conversation with him. And don't forget, tomorrow on the show, Michael Volino, Steuben County legislator, as well as Town of Thurston supervisor. On Monday, we're going to talk with Mark Watts about the Chemung County Fair. And then on Tuesday, former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski will be joining us on Tuesday. We will have more guests throughout the week. That's just what I have in the books right now. But I want to make this quick announcement. Steuben County will host Steuben 250, a county-wide celebration commemorating the 250th anniversary of both New York and America. Organized by the Steuben County Historian's Office and Steuben County Historical Society, this free public event will take place on Saturday, September 5th. So I'm getting this to you now because we know how summer is winding down. Your calendar's probably booked up till the end. It's September 5th. Get on your calendar from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. at Pulteney Square. The event is sponsored by the New York 250th Commemorative Commission. There'll be living history and military reenactments, commemorative musical performances, local food and vendors. They have a Facebook page if you want to find out more, but just get that on your calendar, September 5th, and we'll try to talk with our good friend Griffin Bates, the Steuben County historian, on that as the event nears. But that was just announced, and I wanted to make sure that you knew all about it. Okay, let's take a short break, and when we return, John Buckley. Stay right there. We'll be, let me see. Yeah, we'll be right back.
One big day of smooth jazz awaits you at the Ferrario Elmira Jazz Festival. Join us at Thorne Street Park Saturday, August 15th for chart-topping jazz keyboardist Brian Simpson and soprano saxophonist Marion Meadows with local favorite Top Shelf. Celebrate with us. Tickets only $42. It's one big day. Buy tickets at ElmiraJazzFestival.com. Brian, Marion, and Top Shelf. One big day.
It's more than music.
Make this the summer Jeep event you've been waiting for. Save over $7,200 on all new 2026 Jeep Wrangler two-door sports.
Don't miss the Make This the Summer Jeep event. Drive home your new 2026 Jeep Wrangler today. Chilson Wilcox, selling cars a different way, the right way. Adventure starts here.
Hurry in! When they're gone, they're gone.
Having a safe home is essential to many aspects of our lives. From a sense of community and safety, to physical and mental health, to economic security and independence. Most homes in our communities are not accessible and are not designed to accommodate the changes that come with age, including the risk of falling. The Older Adults Home Modification Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
Frankly Speaking Roof Can, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio and in the digital Hesselson studio. It's our good friend, Hornell Mayor John Buckley. Welcome back, buddy.
Well, thanks for having me, Frank. It's always great to be back on Frankly Speaking.
This has been such a fun summer. There's been so many things going on. It's going fast. We were talking out there, joking that July is already over, essentially. You've got a big event that you announced recently, a while ago now. But before we get into that, how unifying was Big Boy for all of us?
Oh, my gosh. The Big Boy train locomotive, it made its way from California all across the country. Stopped here in the city of Hornell. We were very blessed and fortunate to have that, and what a huge event. We had, somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 people that we estimated came to the city of Hornell, and to watch it, to live it, to it was absolutely incredible. We worked together. We had a bunch of meetings to try to plan and prepare for it. It's kind of, I liken it to a big concert coming to your town. Imagine the the Beatles or the Rolling Stones are coming to town.
Right.
You have all these people coming in. Where are you going to put them? Where's everyone going to park? How do you get down to the ground zero where the train is going to be?
Right.
And we coordinated with our police department, our DPW, the sheriff's department, the state police. County officials were involved, and everything went seamlessly. But what a wonderful experience it was, and as you mentioned, a unifying event. In a time where it seems like the country is so divided politically on so many different issues. This locomotive, from the World War II era comes to town, and just everything melts away. Everyone is just enjoying the moment, and all the memories come rushing back, especially some of the old railroaders that came out and traveled to Hornell.
Right.
That worked at the old Erie Railroad shops and worked on locomotives, way back in the day, and there's so much history and heritage there. It was just a wonderful, wonderful event. We had a live band play down there, and they played all train-inspired songs.
That's great.
So it was really neat. It was a great time.
It was. It almost seems like it kicked off America 250 for all of us. I know there were some events before that, but it just felt like, all right, we are in celebration mode for America 250. Did you guys have fun for July 4th and the whole America 250?
Oh, we did, and we had just a huge parade and festivities down at Veterans Memorial Park, and the largest fireworks show that we've ever had by far in the city. We really lit the sky up and then some that night. But it was just an amazing time. Kicking it off with the Big Boy event, right on through.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. I wish I would have bought stock in fireworks this year. Everybody has a display.
This year I can't imagine. They must have been preparing well in advance for the increased sales, and not just the sales, but the companies that actually go out and set those up and set them off.
Right.
I would imagine. I haven't really talked to any of them. I don't have any inside knowledge, but I would imagine they had to probably bring on more staff this year.
I would think.
Did you happen to see the firework display in Washington, D.C.?
That was crazy. Well, I stayed up too.
I stayed up until I don't even know what time it was, but it was in the wee hours. I'm watching this thing, and every time I think it's starting to climax and it's going to end, just ramped up again.
I know. That's what I mean. It was great. I love the celebration of America 250. It seems like people, especially going back to Big Boy or to the various celebrations, people just seemed in a festive mood, going back to what we were talking about at a time when we're so divided. This seemed like something, not that what the media says, but actually on the ground, what we saw seemed like it brought people together.
Absolutely. And, every day when I wake up, I just I'm always reminded how blessed I am to wake up in the greatest country that this earth has ever seen. We're so blessed to be Americans. We have our squabbles about this, that, and the other thing, but in the grand scheme of things, we are so blessed and so fortunate to live in the country that we do, that's afforded us so many opportunities. I mean, look at us today. We're talking on the air. We can pretty much say whatever we want, talk about whatever we want. Some countries you don't have that freedom.
Exactly.
You don't have the freedom of speech and expression that we do here, and you don't always have the freedom of disagreement in some countries either. And it just kind of underscores how wonderful and how great our nation really is.
Yeah, and having an opportunity, someone sent me a really nice note the other day, having the opportunity to speak with your elected officials. Like, people can comment and call in and text you and say, what's going on in Hornell? Or people, when I have the mayor, the councilman, whoever it is, that's an opportunity that we have in this country where people can text you right now and love you or hate you, right? Isn't that how it works?
Absolutely. Well, hopefully it's more love than hate.
I'm sure it is.
Whether you're at the gas pump or the grocery store or the restaurant, there's always access, and that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Now we're talking about all these great events that already happened, but this is the 17th annual. This is hard to believe. Mustang Rally. I know. Didn't Hornell just get it last year? Is that how that worked?
Yeah, the Mustang Rally of the Finger Lakes. It's the 17th annual. Kicks off tomorrow here in the city of Hornell. So we actually adopted it from the Village of Phelps, which is up in Ontario County.
Okay.
And they hosted it. It was the home for the rally for the first 15 years. And, I think you kind of had a situation where you had the same core group doing it year after year. And, some of them got a little tired and,
sure.
Wanted to move off. And, then, those things happen. And, I talked to the organizers a few years back, and I told them, hey, if you ever get to the point where you think you're going to pull the plug on it, let me know. We'll adopt it. We'll bring it to Hornell. We'll keep it going, and that's what we've done. So last year we had the rally here. We had over 90 Mustangs.
Wow.
For year one, I was honestly, Frank, I was hoping for maybe 50.
Yeah, right.
And then we were over 90 and just blew it out of the water. We had food vendors and music and craft vendors. We had everything down there at the park. So tomorrow we kick it off. It's a 2-day event. So day one on Friday, we meet down at the park. We'll be meeting at 3 p.m. So all of you Mustang fanatics out there, if you want to join us, meet down at Veterans Memorial Park in the city of Hornell at 3 p.m. We'll be taking off from there, and we'll actually drive parade style through the city, and then we'll be heading to Watkins Glen International, the historic racetrack, for a track lap. So we'll do 3 laps around the iconic track, have a good time there, and then we'll parade back. And then on Saturday, that's the actual car show portion of the Mustang Rally. And that's when, everyone comes and, shows up, shines up their ponies and shows them off for the day. And, we're expecting another, very strong turnout. We actually have a lot of people coming from out of state. We have at least 10 vehicles that I know, 10 Mustangs that are coming down from Canada.
Oh, wow.
So our friends from our neighbors to the north are coming down to participate. And, we're just very excited, and it looks like Mother Nature is going to cooperate. The weather looks good for both of those days.
Knock on wood. Well, so it almost seems like the first day, Friday, is almost for the Mustang owner themselves, right? They get to go to a historic Watkins Glen International. Imagine what that feels. And could you say that Saturday is more for everyone? I mean, they're both for everyone, but Saturday is more the festivity, right?
Yeah. So Friday is track day. That's more for the driving experience.
Yeah.
We get to we'll take some back roads, and so we'll have some scenic drives on the way to Watkins, and then obviously the track itself is more of a driver experience. And I've done it several times over the years, and it's a blast. Yeah. It really is. But yeah, Saturday is for everyone. It's the car show, and it's for the community and the surrounding communities, and come out. And last year the attendance was very, very strong. We had so many people. Actually, some of the food vendors had such good days they were starting to run out of food. So we
That's a good
beefed
problem.
that up.
Yeah.
We beefed that up this year. We've got Biggie's Tex-Mex. We've got barbecue coming. We've got another one bringing pizza, drinks. You name it, we've got it. And it's going to be a great day. Also, I should mention it is at Veterans Memorial Park at James Street, which offers a wide variety of different activities, including the municipal swimming pool, and swimming is free that day.
Oh, that's great.
So, if you're getting a little warm and you're walking around seeing those Mustangs and you work up a sweat, you need to go cool off, take a dip in the pool, run around in the splash pad, and have a good time.
Does anybody let the mayor borrow a Mustang for the weekend?
Well, the mayor has his own Mustang.
Oh, do you have your own Mustang? I guess I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course.
I guess I did know that.
I have a 2006 GT, and
Nice.
it's 20 years old this year, Frank.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's been a minute, but I've had it. I actually bought it used when it was 3 years old, so I've had it 17 years, and that's part of the rally. When the rally was being held in Phelps, I attended. Let's see, out of the 15 years they had it, I probably went to 9 or 10 of those events. Okay. And it always had a great time. Such a beautiful drive up to the village of Phelps, and I was just very. It was kind of bittersweet when they were starting to wrap it up, because it was such a tradition there, and they started it there. But I wanted to keep it going. I thought it was important to the Mustang community, and Hornell has welcomed it with open arms, and we're just so happy to not only keep it going, but be the new home of the rally.
Of course. So again, it's this Friday, this Saturday. You can find out more on Facebook. I see people talking about it. I know it was a big success last year, so best of luck with that. I'm embarrassed I didn't know you had a Mustang. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, I've been driving it for years.
Well, there you go. I learn something new every day. So we've been talking about the summer. It sounds like it's been a great summer. I know this gets into kind of a wonky territory, but I do have a lot of people's representative, the mayor himself, on. How's the infrastructure projects coming this summer?
Well, we've got a lot of infrastructure projects. Some with the city itself. New York State DOT is doing a very large project. Our school district has several capital projects happening simultaneously, but no particular order. We're wrapping up a second phase of our project at our sewer plant, investing millions of dollars in that. And so we talk off air sometimes. There's a sexy project.
Yeah, right.
Those are the parks and things like that, and the things you can see. And then there's the unsexy projects.
Sewers.
If you don't see sewer and water, the infrastructure, off-site or under the ground, but are vitally important. So, for municipalities all around that deliver water and sewer, those things you have to invest. You have to keep those operations going, because what's the first thing you do in the morning, Frank? You go into the bathroom.
Exactly.
You turn the sink on. You want that water to come. Magically appears. You flush a toilet. It goes down the drain. But all those infrastructures, the water plant, the sewer plant, they operate 24/7, 365, and it's just so important to keep those. Not just to maintain them, but to invest for the future. And also economic development. We don't talk about this enough, but economic development is directly linked to your ability to provide adequate sewer and water. Because if a company is coming or they're looking to build in your municipality, they're going to want to know, is there sewer and water hookups? What's your capacity? Can you handle that? And it's important when you're doing these upgrades not to build for what you have, but build for the future. What does your community look like 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and build that capacity to meet those future needs, because those are the hallmarks of a growing community. DOT, I mentioned, they're doing a $60-some million project on Route 36, redesigning the 4-lane that goes, basically starts up at Route 66 and goes through the city of Hornell to the village of Canisteel. So they're doing a big portion of that throughout the city, village, and the town of Hornellsville. They're including, and this is near and dear to my heart, they're including a new walking and bicycle trail that will go alongside it.
Oh, that's great.
It'll be really nice. It'll start Center City and go up. It'll be off to the side, and there'll be a protective barrier there, between the roadway and the walkway. It'll be a really nice feature, something we don't have because, we have the Wegmans Walmart Plaza, which gets a lot of traffic. It's a lot of foot traffic, but people walk on the shoulder and have for years. So it'll be really nice to, have a protected area where they can do that. But also it'll open up recreational opportunities because it'll create a loop because we have the Shawmut Trail, which is on the other side of that plaza, and it'll basically effectively create a loop for those runners, walkers, or bicyclists that are looking for recreation and exercise.
Well, safety first, if nothing else. So that's a major project.
Huge.
Wow.
It's a once in a generation project, and hats off to Brian Kelly, the Region 6 director, and his team. They've been fabulous to work with, and I've been attending the stakeholder meetings right along. There's certain things the city's doing in conjunction with DOT, and same with the town and the village. We've all been working very closely together to make sure that we have the most impactful project for the community that we can.
Yeah. Well, before we go, I know I'm keeping you long here. A couple quick things to go through. Anything going on locally on the political scene that we need to know about, John? With November near?
It's an off year. It's an off year for local elections here, so not a whole lot going on here. But we're certainly keeping our eye on the some of the statewide races, including the gubernatorial race, AG, comptroller. Obviously it's a congressional year, so there's a lot at stake this year.
Yes, and get out and vote. That's going to be the big thing, I think.
Get out and vote. You got to participate. And I always like to say, if you didn't vote, then don't complain about the result.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And before we go, how are things on the Pulse, WLEA, our good buddies at WLEA?
Got to get the plug in.
Yeah.
So the Pulse weekends at 1 p.m. WLEA, WYSL, things are humming along. We just had our first anniversary back in the spring, and you're a frequent guest and my backup host.
I love it
when I'm off on assignment somewhere. So I appreciate you being on as much as you are, and we're having a great time. We have a wide range of guests. We got Sheriff Jim Allard on.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. So one of your favorite guests.
Oh, absolutely.
We've got a lot going on in law enforcement. I can't wait to kind of dive into it with the sheriff, pick his brain, get his insights, and see where things are headed.
Isn't it amazing how quick a year goes? I mean, my goodness. I remember when you first announced that you were doing it, I thought, this is great. What a perfect opportunity for LEA and WYSL. So I'm excited for it, and I love doing it. Thank you for always having me on.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a pleasure having you on, and it's always great being on your show.
That's right. Well, thank you for giving us so much time. Best of luck. Have fun at the Mustang. Send some pictures in. We'll put them on the air on Monday.
Absolutely.
You and the Mustang.
I'll definitely do that.
All right. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Thanks, Frank.
All
Appreciate
right.
you having me on.
Of course. Anytime. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
It's the home of creativity. Release your inner audio engineer. Create with the 3D printer. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine rentals. Or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to your local library today.
Servview Credit Union is proud to be celebrating 70 years of serving members in our communities. And what better way to celebrate than to pass along some savings to you? Now through September 30th, take 0.70% APR off our current auto loan rates. And we're gifting a $70 gift card to all auto loans over $10,000 to help buy your first tank of gas. Apply in person, online, or over the phone and start enjoying the benefits of teaming up with Servview Credit Union. Thank you for giving us the chance to serve you since 1956.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We do have some lingering shower and isolated thunderstorm potential for our Thursday, and on the cooler side still as well, with highs ranging from 72 to 78 across the region. Overnight, we'll bottom out in mid-50s and low 60s with partly cloudy skies. Then, mostly sunny on Friday, a high of 83 on track with daily average. We'll have a high of 86 and stay dry.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We can't thank Hornell Mayor John Buckley enough for being on the program, giving us so much time this morning. That Mustang rail is going to be fun. I'm embarrassed I didn't know he had a Mustang. I should have known that. I should have known, but we appreciate Mayor Buckley being on the show again tomorrow. Michael Volino, Steuben County Legislator and Thurston Town Supervisor. And then on Monday, Mark Watts talking about the Chemung County Fair. Tuesday, former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joseph Belinsky. The list keeps going on and on. Let's go to some great viewer comments here. Regarding Fauci, writes this viewer, something that has not been talked about is that he can be said to own the resulting inflation. That's a great point. A lot of what Biden pushed the Inflation Reduction Act was on the backs of COVID, but I think a lot of that was an excuse. They just wanted to spend. Look at the bipartisan infrastructure bill, right? That was just about spending money. But yeah, you could say he had a big responsibility in inflation. Comment from Jack. He says, perhaps a different view of Fauci's testimony. By pleading the fifth over 100 times, 111 times as a matter of fact, undoubtedly caused many people to stop watching it. A friend told me it got boring. That's a good point. Didn't get to hear the better statements, perhaps, that some of the senators were saying. That's a very fair point, Jack. That could have been a part of the plan. Ken writes in, pursuant to a previous comment from one of your informed viewers, the biggest question I have concerning Fauci is whose bidding was he doing to become the highest paid person in the entire federal government? Most likely he was being handsomely compensated to keep his mouth shut on the research and gain of function that he and our government were funding. While he did a huge disservice to America and the world, he did not act alone. We should be trying to find out what other high-level officials were involved in that extremely dangerous research that got out of control, and if it is still going on. And that's a fair point. I remember at the time people were asking about maybe China's involvement with Fauci's talking points, because if you look at his diaries as compared to what he was saying, he had questions of whether or not it was created in the lab. And then, of course, when you said that, you were conspiracy theory, and he was one of the ones pushing that wasn't the science. But very good points from viewers. I appreciate that. David Marcus called him the egomaniac in yesterday's hearing. I think that's fair to say after reading his diaries. It was all about the fame and fortune. Okay, we have a couple New York issues. I know I have to take a break already. We ran just a little bit late with the mayor. But surprise, surprise, your rebate check sent to you by Governor Kathy Hochul should arrive shortly before Election Day. The timing. The checks for up to $200 were approved by Governor Hochul and lawmakers as part of the $277 billion state budget adopted in May. The Democrat governor said the $1 billion rebate program is designed to help people facing higher utility bills. Wow. Is that even one of your payments? Probably not. $200. Remember that? That was supposed to save your life. Your mounting bills caused by one-party rule in Albany, your utility bills caused by the policies of Governor Hochul and Albany one-party rule, to save you, to save the day. They're going to give you $200, and guess what? You're going to receive it right before Election Day. Again, reminding you that Governor Hochul is running for re-election. So, she seems to have a lot more concern about Blakeman than we originally thought, or that she wants you to believe. We've got a couple things on that and ICE. When we return, stay with us. We're going quick this morning. Don't go anywhere.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world.
Hey, you're sober? You drive.
Kyle just made a decision that would change his whole world. Drive sober or get pulled over.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one, hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Speaking of one-party rule in Albany, more New York Democrats are calling for ICE to be abolished. We talked with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. If you missed that yesterday, you can find it on our YouTube page or on WYDCTV.com. And we talked about this, that abolish ICE is kind of the new catchphrase used by the left, like they had to fund the police. The letter addressed to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, again, by their own party. This is that infighting in the Civil War in the Democrat Party that they're not talking about. It originally had 107 people sign the letter, first released on July 20th. Wednesday's edition brings the letter. This is just what we're dealing with when you think about Albany. 143 total signatories from Long Island to Buffalo. The article says, while President Donald Trump has escalated ICE's operations, this did not begin with him. Past administrations have been complicit in ICE's growing abuse of power, and the agency's cruelty will continue regardless of who sits in the White House. So I'm not going to go through who all the people were, obviously, when you're talking about 143 total signatures. But the Democrat Party's new line, part of their policies, we talked about the anti-Semitism and things like that. Now it's abolishing ICE. Well, Madison County Sheriff, as I mentioned, we talked with Steuben County Sheriff yesterday. Madison County Sheriff said that he will defy Letitia James's warning, saying, I'm still going to work with ICE. Now you say, why are you bringing up the Madison County Sheriff? You may recognize this name, Todd Hood. Madison County Sheriff Todd Hood, who also happens to be running with Bruce Blakeman as lieutenant governor. And we mentioned yesterday with the sheriff, Blakeman has been great with his work with ICE, and Todd Hood as well. So that's why many people believe this abolishing any kind of agreement with ICE and local governments or local law enforcement, that is a direct attack on Blakeman because, again, Governor Hochul is scared. Hood said a warning letter he received Friday from the Attorney General's office was nothing more than a political stunt aimed at making a big splash before the election. This is going to affect me very little, Hood said. I'm still going to work with ICE. They can't prevent us from working with them. I just think it's funny that the headline says Madison County Sheriff will defy New York Attorney General's warning. I'm still going to work with ICE, and does not mention. Where does it finally mention? Doesn't mention that he's running with Blakeman? Anyway. But Blakeman, this is how they're, again, they've got to be scared. Blakeman saying is set the stage for election denialism. That's what, I think this was city and state. Blakeman set stage for election denialism. The Republican gubernatorial candidate said he would accept, well, actually, let me just read them because they have a typo in here, city and state. The Republican gubernatorial said he would accept the outcome of the election only if it's fair, after saying Democrats would cheat. Do I think they're going to try to cheat? Yeah, but we'll stop them, said Blakeman. If the results of the election are fair and they reflect what actually people voted for, yes. Kathy Hochul, if you try to cheat, people are going to go to jail. And to just plant that seed, what exactly his definition of fair is another question. All right, we got to take our last break, and then we're going to wrap up, so get your comments in. This is Frankly Speaking.
When it comes to home improvement, Horseheads Do-It Center has you covered. Family-owned, locally trusted, and packed with everything you need for any project. From top-quality tools to kitchen and bath essentials, we make it easy. Competitive prices, expert advice, friendly service. Visit us at 124 North Main Street or online at doitbest.com/horseheads today.
I had had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers. We do have some lingering shower and isolated thunderstorm potential for our Thursday, and on the cooler side still as well, with highs ranging from 72 to 78 across the region. Overnight, we'll bottom out in mid-50s and low 60s with partly cloudy skies. Then, mostly sunny on Friday, a high of 83 on track with daily average. We'll have a high of 86 and stay dry Saturday.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Mark writes in, imagine that Hochul is popping a check in people's hands just before election for votes, and the sheeple don't understand it's coming out of their pockets. Yes, it's just that nice little $200 check they don't realize that they're paying for, obviously, in the long run. This was interesting. Two prominent Democrat figures with deep ties to the Clinton and Obama administration publicly criticized Mayor Zohran Mamdani this week, with former Clinton advisor Mark Penn attacking the mayor's proposed property tax, while former Obama White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel recounted what he described as a private conversation in which he challenged Mamdani's rhetoric on Israel. Now, some have speculated that Rahm Emanuel perhaps thinking of running for president. Now, Penn wrote, the $5 million figure was a fake, arguing the city's valuation system had improperly classified properties that would force homeowners to prove they should not be taxed. And they've talked about that second house, what a mess that is. Emanuel said he praised portions of Mamdani's domestic agenda, including childcare, but criticized Mamdani's past use of the phrase from the river to the sea. I know where there's a line, you don't, Emanuel recalled telling Mamdani. Emanuel said both calls for a greater Israel and the slogan from the river to the sea would lead to perpetual conflict. And it has led there. Oh, also yesterday, just because we've had a couple updates on Mamdani lately, he recently released an interview where he signaled an openness to reparations for slavery in the city. Mamdani said in an interview with The Root, we often think about slavery and the complicity in slavery as being exclusively to certain geographic areas of the country. Here in New York City, we were very complicit, and so I look forward to whatever those findings are, and that is the city effort examining reparations. I can't give you an answer in advance of them, but I can tell you that this is critically important because this is also what it looks like to acknowledge what history truly was, as if that's not the only, that's what the media and the Democrat Party specifically, that is what they focus on. But now we're talking about slavery reparations in New York. Now, keep in mind, Gavin Newsom, who wants to run for president in California, as far left as California, they studied this, and the results were how much it would cost. He ignored it, and nothing was ever done. It was more of a virtue signaling act. If New York goes forward with reparations, however, it might face legal battles from the federal government. All right, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Comment from a viewer. Guess Fauci had no sexual harassment allegations. Otherwise, he would have gone the way of Cuomo. They were very similar in the way that they were handling COVID and loving the attention, loving the fame. But that does it. Thank you again to Hornell Mayor John Buckley for being our guest this morning. Always appreciate him being on the show. Tomorrow, Michael Valino, Steuben County Legislator and Thurston Town Supervisor. Monday, Mark Watts from the Chemung County Fair. And then Tuesday, former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning bright and early for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I look forward to it already.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.